I'm Audrey Mitchell, 32, and I believed my 5-year anniversary would be magical. Instead, I sat alone at Bordeaux, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, checking my watch every 5 minutes. 1 hour turned into 3 as waiters refilled my wine glass with pitying smiles. When James finally appeared with his business friends, his cruel words shattered my heart. "See, I told you she'd still be here, waiting like a faithful dog." They all laughed. If you're watching this, let me know where you're from and subscribe to see how I transformed humiliation into the sweetest revenge. 6 years ago, I was Audrey Wilson, a rising marketing executive at Thompson and Bright in Manhattan. My career was on an upward trajectory. I had just landed the Westfield account, bringing in over $2 million in revenue. My boss called me the client whisperer. I worked 60-hour weeks, but loved every minute. My apartment in Chelsea was small but mine, decorated with trinkets from weekend trips and photos of friends. I was building something for myself. That changed the night of the Metropolitan Children's Hospital fundraiser. My firm had purchased a table, and as one of the top performers, I received an invitation. The gala was held at the Plaza Hotel, crystal chandeliers reflecting off champagne flutes and diamond necklaces. I wore a navy blue gown, nothing flashy, but elegant enough to blend in. James Thompson entered like he owned the room. At 38, he commanded attention without trying. Tall, with salt and pepper hair and a tailored tuxedo that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He was a successful real estate developer with projects across Manhattan, known for luxury high-rises that transformed entire neighborhoods. "You're not enjoying yourself," he said, appearing beside me as I hid near a flower arrangement. Not a question, an observation. "Is it that obvious?" I laughed, surprised by his directness. Only to someone equally uncomfortable at these things. He handed me a fresh champagne. "James Thompson. Audrey Wilson. Wilson from Thompson and Bright? You handled the Westfield campaign." I was stunned he knew my work. What followed was a conversation that lasted hours. We skipped the charity auction entirely, finding a quiet corner to discuss everything from marketing strategies to our favorite hole-in-the-wall restaurants in the city. Our first date was the following weekend. Dinner at a small Italian restaurant in the village where the owner greeted James by name. Second date, a private tour of MoMA after hours, arranged through a connection of his. Third date, a helicopter ride over Manhattan at sunset. Each experience more extraordinary than the last. James was charming, attentive, surprising me with weekday lunch deliveries to my office and spontaneous weekend trips to the Hamptons. When we'd walk into restaurants, he'd place his hand on the small of my back, protective, proud. I felt special, cherished in a way I never had before. As our relationship progressed, James asked for my professional opinion on his marketing strategies. I helped rebrand his company, Thompson Properties, creating campaigns that highlighted the luxury lifestyle his buildings offered. Overnight, his sales increased by 30%. He called me his secret weapon. After dating for just under a year, James proposed on a private yacht circling Manhattan. The ring was platinum with a diamond so large I was embarrassed to show my coworkers. 6 months later, we married at the Plaza, the same place we'd met. 200 guests, orchid centerpieces, a 10-piece band. My parents, school teachers from Michigan, looked out of place but proud. The first 2 years of marriage were everything I'd hoped. We purchased a brownstone in the Upper East Side and renovated it together. James would bring home blueprints, and we'd stay up late discussing which walls to remove and where to place windows. We hosted dinner parties for his investors and my clients. We traveled, Tokyo, Bali, Rome, James always booking the presidential suite. We talked about children, agreeing to wait until his new development in Soho was complete. I left Thompson and Bright to handle marketing exclusively for James's company. "We're building our empire together," he said. I believed him. I believed everything. The shift happened so gradually I barely noticed. Year 3, James began working later, coming home at 9, then 10, then midnight. When I presented new marketing concepts, his responses grew curt. "Just handle it, Audrey." My role reduced from partner to employee. My friend Rachel noticed first. We'd been roommates in college, and she remained my closest confidant. Over brunch at our usual spot, she asked, "Are you okay? You seem different." "Just tired," I said. "James's new development is demanding." "And how are things with James?" I stirred my coffee. "Fine. Busy." Rachel reached for my hand. "You've said fine the last 4 times I've asked." Our 3rd anniversary fell during the final negotiations for James's Soho project. He called at 6 p.m., apologizing for the emergency meeting that would keep him at the office. I sat alone with the steak dinner I'd prepared, candles melting onto the tablecloth. My responsibilities at Thompson Properties increased while my authority diminished. I worked from our home office, creating marketing materials that James would approve with barely a glance. My name disappeared from company communications. I became the team rather than Audrey Mitchell, marketing director. James's social circle shifted too. The new developments attracted wealthier investors, men with trophy wives and girlfriends decades younger. At dinners, these men discussed business while their partners compared plastic surgeons. I attempted to join business conversations only to receive patronizing smiles. Our 4th anniversary, James arrived 90 minutes late to our dinner reservation. Throughout the meal, he answered emails on his phone. When I expressed frustration, he slid a blue Tiffany box across the table, diamond earrings that matched my wedding set. "Don't be dramatic, Audrey. I'm here now." I tried to communicate my feelings of being undervalued. "I feel like I'm disappearing in our relationship." "You're being oversensitive," he'd respond, or "That never happened," or "You're remembering it wrong." I began doubting my own perceptions. Last Christmas, my parents visited from Michigan. After James left for a quick meeting that lasted 6 hours, my mother cornered me in the kitchen. "Honey, are you happy?" "Of course, Mom. James is just busy." She didn't look convinced. James's criticism became more frequent. My hair was too plain or too styled. I spent too much on clothes or didn't dress well enough for events. I was too quiet with his associates or embarrassed him by talking too much. I couldn't win. I started keeping a mental checklist: perfect hair, perfect outfit, perfect amount of speaking, perfect supporting wife. Rachel grew more concerned. "Audrey, what you're describing sounds like narcissistic behavior. The constant criticism, the gaslighting." "He's under pressure," I defended. "The Brooklyn project has investors backing out. You always have an excuse for him." As our 5th anniversary approached, I convinced myself it would be different. 5 years was significant. We'd turn a corner, reconnect, prove Rachel wrong. I would make sure everything was perfect. I made the reservation at Bordeaux 3 months in advance. Securing a table at Manhattan's most exclusive French restaurant typically required connections or a 6-month waitlist, but I'd helped the owner's daughter land an internship at a fashion magazine. When I called, Monsieur Laurent himself answered. "For you, Madame Mitchell?" "Mais oui, the best table." Bordeaux occupied the penthouse of a midtown high-rise, its glass walls offering a panoramic view of Central Park and the city skyline. Critics praised Chef Pascal's 7-course tasting menu as transcendent and worth mortgaging your home for. At $495 per person before wine pairings, it nearly required that. For James's anniversary gift, I tracked down a vintage Patek Philippe watch he'd admired in a magazine, spending weeks negotiating with collectors and authenticators. The 1940s timepiece cost nearly $20,000, depleting my personal savings account. I justified the expense. This watch represented history, craftsmanship, everything James valued. The day of our anniversary, I scheduled an entire self-care routine: 9 a.m. hot yoga to center myself, 11 a.m. hair appointment at Bergdorf's salon for loose waves that looked effortless, but required 90 minutes of styling, 1 p.m. manicure and pedicure in pale pink. James thought red was trying too hard, 3 p.m. facial that left my skin glowing. Shopping for the perfect dress had been a week-long mission. I settled on a black Valentino cocktail dress, elegant but not overdone, with a neckline James had once complimented on another woman. The price tag made me wince, but anniversaries justified exceptions. At 2:13 p.m., James texted, confirmed for 7. Looking forward to it. No mention of love or our anniversary, but I focused on the positive, he remembered. Back home, I spent nearly 2 hours on makeup. Foundation that covered the stress breakout on my chin, concealer for the dark circles from nights lying awake listening for his key in the door, eyeshadow that made my green eyes pop without looking overdone, another James criticism. I applied the perfume he'd given me last Christmas, still in its nearly full bottle. I called an Uber at 6:30, allowing time for midtown traffic. The driver complimented my appearance. Special occasion? 5th wedding anniversary, I said, realizing it was the first time I'd spoken those words aloud. The restaurant's private elevator opened directly into the reception area, where Monsieur Laurent himself greeted me. Madame Mitchell, radiant as always. Monsieur is not with you. He's meeting me here. Of course. Your table awaits. He led me through the dimly lit restaurant, past tables of couples and business associates engaged in hushed conversations. Our table, positioned in a prime corner with dual-facing views, was already set with a bottle of Dom Perignon in an ice bucket. A small card read, "Happy Anniversary," with compliments from Bordeaux. Your husband's favorite champagne, non? Monsieur Laurent winked as the sommelier approached to pour. I checked my phone. 6:57 p.m. I'll wait for my husband before opening it. The sommelier retreated with a polite nod. By 7:15, I'd memorized the intricate pattern on the hand-painted china. By 7:30, I sent my first text. Are you running late? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then nothing. I ordered a glass of Sancerre at 7:45. My husband is delayed, I explained to the waiter, a kind-eyed man named Marco who mastered the art of appearing neither concerned nor judgmental. At 8 o'clock, I texted again, everything okay? Should I be worried? No response. By 8:15, neighboring diners were giving me sidelong glances. The champagne in its bucket had likely reached room temperature. I called James's cell. Straight to voicemail. It's me. I'm at Bordeaux. Please call. 8:30. Marco approached with professional sympathy. Madam, perhaps a small appetizer while you wait? The chef's gougers, compliments of the house. I accepted the cheese puffs to avoid looking pathetic, though my appetite had long disappeared. 8:45. A couple was seated at the neighboring table, her in red, trying too hard, him attentive, pulling out her chair. She caught my eye and quickly looked away, whispering something to her date. 9 p.m. James, please let me know what's happening. I thought about the other times, the missed dinner parties, the vacations cut short, the events where I made excuses for his absence. Always a work emergency, always apologized for with expensive gifts and promises to do better. I kept making excuses for him, both to others and to myself. But tonight was different. Tonight was our anniversary. 9:30. 2 hours and 30 minutes of waiting. The restaurant had begun to empty. Marco brought me a second glass of wine, this one appearing mysteriously without a charge on the check I hadn't yet requested. Would you like to order dinner, madam? He'll be here soon, I said with a confidence I no longer felt. By 10 p.m., Bordeaux was half empty. My third glass of wine had dulled the edge of humiliation, but sharpened the ache of disappointment. Only a few tables remained occupied, mostly couples finishing dessert or business dinners wrapping up negotiations. I'd nearly decided to surrender when I heard it, James's distinctive laugh, too loud for the refined atmosphere of Bordeaux, accompanied by several male voices. My heart leapt, then immediately sank. He wasn't alone. The sound of approaching footsteps and male laughter grew louder. I straightened my posture, dabbed my lips with the napkin, and tried to look as though I'd been enjoying myself rather than silently crying in 5-minute intervals for the past 3 hours. James appeared with 3 men I recognized as business associates, Maxwell Harding from City National Bank, Derek Johnson from the architectural firm that designed his buildings, and Thomas Blackwell, his attorney. All wore expensive suits with loosened ties and the overly confident expressions of men who'd been drinking for hours. They spotted me, and I caught the moment of shared amusement between them before they approached. James didn't meet my eyes. Is this your patient wife? Maxwell asked, his voice carrying across the now quiet restaurant. James smirked, placing his hand on Maxwell's shoulder as he replied, "See? I told you she'd still be here, waiting like a faithful dog." The three men erupted in laughter. James joined them a beat later, louder than necessary. I froze. The wine glass in my hand suddenly felt too heavy to hold. My face burned hot while my extremities went cold. The restaurant's ambient noise seemed to disappear, leaving only the sound of their laughter and my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My hands trembled so violently I had to set down my glass to avoid spilling. Thomas, at least, had the decency to look uncomfortable, his laugh trailing off as he noticed my expression. He glanced away, suddenly very interested in the ceiling's architectural details. James slid into the chair across from me without a word of apology, signaling to a waiter. "Your best, McKellen, neat. 4 glasses." Not a question, a command. He turned to his friends. "Guys, my wife Audrey." "No, sorry I'm late." "No, happy anniversary." Just my wife Audrey, like I was another accessory, like his Rolex or Italian loafers. The men seated themselves uninvited at our anniversary table. Maxwell immediately launched into a story about a development opportunity in Tribeca, speaking across me as though I weren't there. James nodded enthusiastically, completely engaged. When I attempted to speak, "James, I've been waiting," he placed his hand firmly on my shoulder, squeezing in a way that appeared affectionate but felt like a warning. "Audrey's been keeping the table warm for us," he said, cutting me off. "Haven't you, darling?" I excused myself to the restroom on legs that didn't feel like my own. Inside a marble stall that cost more than some people's monthly rent, I pressed my forehead against the cool wall and allowed myself 30 seconds of silent sobbing. In the mirror, I assessed the damage, mascara intact thanks to its waterproof promise, but my eyes were red-rimmed and my carefully applied blush had been replaced by blotchy natural color. I reapplied my lipstick with military precision, took 3 deep breaths, and returned to the table with a blank expression that had taken years to perfect. The men barely registered my return. James glanced up briefly. "You look tired," he commented before returning to his conversation about projected returns on investment. At the next table, a woman about my age caught my eye. She gave a subtle nod of solidarity, her expression communicating that she witnessed my humiliation and recognized it for what it was. Somehow, her acknowledgement made it both better and worse. Marco hovered near our table with increased frequency, finding reasons to refill water glasses and adjust silverware. When James brusquely ordered another round without looking at him, Marco's eyes flicked to me with concern. "Is everything to your satisfaction, madam?" he asked quietly while the men were distracted. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The minutes stretched into an hour. I sat silently as the men discussed business deals, sports, and a recent trip to Vegas that James had told me was a developers conference. My anniversary gift, the watch I'd spent months tracking down, sat heavy in my purse, now a painful reminder of my miscalculation. "Audrey, for God's sake, lighten up," James said suddenly, noticing my silence. "It's a celebration. Maxwell just closed the West Side deal." "I thought we were celebrating our anniversary," I said, my voice barely audible. James rolled his eyes. "We are. I'm here, aren't I? But life doesn't stop for a calendar date." Maxwell snickered. Derek examined his drink with sudden interest. Thomas checked his phone. In that moment, with perfect clarity, I saw the truth I'd been avoiding for years. This wasn't a rough patch or a phase. This was who James had become, or perhaps who he'd always been beneath the charming facade. Our marriage wasn't just damaged, it was a carefully constructed illusion that existed only in my mind. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I maintained a pleasant expression as my mind raced through possibilities. The waiter approached, and I smiled, my first genuine expression of the evening. "Another bottle of champagne, please." The Dom Perignon that was waiting earlier. James raised an eyebrow. "Now you're getting into the spirit." I excused myself again, this time with measured casualness. "I need to freshen up before the champagne arrives." In the privacy of the elegant bathroom, I locked myself in the same stall and pressed my back against the door. My breathing came in short, painful gasps, the beginning of a panic attack I recognized from the early days after my father died. I focused on the marble tile pattern, counting the veins of gold until my breathing steadied. With the calm came clarity. I opened my purse and removed my wallet, extracting the platinum credit card James had insisted I carry for emergencies. We shared the account, though he reviewed every purchase with skeptical commentary. Do you really need another dress? That lunch was overpriced. What's this charge at Sephora? I pulled out my phone and opened the airline app. First-class seats to Paris on the midnight flight from JFK, available but astronomically expensive. I hit purchase, without hesitation, charging the $20,000 ticket to our shared card. The confirmation appeared immediately. Next, I booked a suite at Le Bristol, Paris, a hotel James had once mentioned wanting to visit. 5 nights at nearly $4,000 per night. Another confirmation, another charge. A knock on the bathroom door. Madam, are you all right? Marco's concerned voice. I emerged, composed but determined. Marco, I need to leave without returning to the table. Is there another exit? His eyes widened slightly, but his professional demeanor never wavered. Of course, madam. Through the kitchen, if you don't mind. Thank you. Could you please bring the check to my husband? And the champagne I ordered. It would be my pleasure, he replied, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Marco led me through the kitchen, a brightly lit contrast to the dim restaurant. Chefs in white coats paused their work, sensing something unusual. They created a silent corridor for my exit, a few nodding with subtle understanding. The kitchen door opened to a service elevator. This will take you directly to the street level, madam. I've called a taxi, it should be waiting. I pressed a $100 bill into his hand. Thank you, Marco. It has been my honor, he replied, bowing slightly. And madam? Bon courage. The taxi driver, an older man named Habib according to his license, glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Where to, miss? East 78th Street, please. I gave him my address, then added, and could you recommend a good florist that delivers? Everything okay, miss? You look upset. I caught my reflection in the window, mascara finally betraying me with subtle smudges beneath my eyes. I will be. The brownstone was dark when I arrived home at 10:45 p.m. I paid Habib generously and hurried inside, immediately heading to our bedroom. I pulled out my largest suitcase and began the strange process of deciding what deserved to accompany me into my new life. Essential clothes. Toiletries. My grandmother's pearl earrings. The photo album from before James, when I still recognized myself. My degree from Northwestern. The rare first edition Austen my parents gave me for graduation. My passport, thankfully up to date, from the locked drawer in James's office, along with $2,000 in emergency cash he didn't know I knew about. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand. In its place, I took the watch I'd bought him, not out of spite, but because it represented months of effort and care that shouldn't be wasted. Perhaps I'd sell it in Paris. On the kitchen counter, I left a brief note. I waited 3 hours. You made your choice. I'm making mine. I called Rachel from the second taxi to JFK. Audrey? It's almost midnight. Is everything okay? I'm going to Paris. Tonight. Alone. What? What happened? I explained in short, clipped sentences. Oh my God, Audrey. Do you want me to come over? We can talk about this. I've already left. I'm on my way to JFK now. A pause. Holy shit. You're serious. Could you keep an eye on things? Let me know if anything crazy happens. I'll text you when I land. Of course. Yes. Absolutely. Audrey, I'm proud of you. And I'm here, whatever you need. Thank you. I have to go. JFK Terminal 4 loomed ahead, surprisingly busy for a late weeknight. The taxi pulled up to the departures level, and I handed the driver cash from my emergency fund. Good luck, miss, he said, seeming to understand that this was no ordinary trip. The departures board showed my flight to Paris, AF007, midnight departure on time. 90 minutes until takeoff. My phone vibrated in my purse. James's name on the screen. I silenced it and continued toward the Air France first-class check-in counter. The first-class check-in line stood empty, a stark contrast to the crowded economy counters where tired travelers waited with oversized luggage. A uniformed agent smiled as I approached. "Good evening, madam. May I have your passport and booking reference?" I provided both, acutely aware of my phone vibrating repeatedly in my purse. "Ah, Mrs. Mitchell. First class to Paris Charles de Gaulle. Traveling alone tonight?" "Yes." "Any checked baggage?" "Just this." I lifted my hastily packed suitcase onto the scale. She tagged it with a priority label and handed me a boarding pass in a leather folder. "You have access to our La Premiere lounge. Your flight will board from Gate 5 in 1 hour. Our lounge staff will escort you directly to the aircraft when it's time." The expedited security lane took less than 5 minutes, another perk of the exorbitant ticket price. As I collected my belongings, I finally checked my phone. 7 missed calls from James. First voicemail. "Audrey, where are you? This isn't funny." Second voicemail. "Answer your phone. Now. You're embarrassing me." Third voicemail. "The waiter said you left." "What the hell, Audrey? This is childish, even for you." Text messages followed the same progression, from irritation to anger. "James, where did you go?" "James, are you seriously throwing a tantrum on our anniversary?" "James, the guys think you're overreacting. Come back." "James, Audrey. Answer your phone." "James, I'm coming home. You better be there." The La Premiere lounge existed in a different reality from the terminal's chaos. Plush seating, ambient lighting, and attentive staff created an atmosphere of hushed luxury. A hostess greeted me at the entrance. "Mrs. Mitchell? Welcome. May I offer you champagne? Or perhaps something stronger? Bourbon neat. Thank you." She led me to a secluded seating area where I could watch departing planes through floor-to-ceiling windows. My drink arrived promptly, accompanied by a small plate of macarons I couldn't imagine eating. An elderly couple settled in nearby, the woman in an elegant travel suit, the man in a blazer with a pocket square. They were discussing their grandchildren in New Hampshire. The woman noticed my red eyes. "First time to Paris, dear?" "Yes," I answered, not elaborating. "You'll love it. It's a city for finding yourself." She patted my hand with surprising gentleness. "Whatever you're running from, Paris is a good place to land." I nearly broke down at her kindness. "Thank you." My phone continued its silent vibration. 27 missed calls now. The frequency suggested James had discovered I wasn't at home. The lounge attendant, Sophia, according to her nameplate, approached discreetly. "Is everything all right, Mrs. Mitchell? You seem distressed." In a moment of unexpected vulnerability, I confided, "I'm leaving my husband tonight. He doesn't know I'm here." Instead of the judgment I half expected, Sophia nodded with understanding. "Many journeys begin in our lounge, madam. Not all are simply about destinations." She slipped me her card. "My sister lives in Paris. If you need anything during your stay, recommendations, assistance, please call her." The boarding announcement came at 11:30 p.m. Air France Flight 007 to Paris is now boarding. La Premiere passengers are invited to proceed to Gate 5. Sophia personally escorted me through a private jetway. "Bon voyage, Mrs. Mitchell. May you find what you're seeking." The first-class cabin contained just 4 suites, each a private enclosure with closing doors. The flight attendant showed me to 1A. "Welcome aboard, Mrs. Mitchell. My name is Samantha, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Would you like champagne before takeoff?" "Yes, please." I settled into the wide leather seat, larger than some sofas I'd owned in my 20s. My phone now showed 43 missed calls. James, plus calls from Maxwell and Derek. Text from Thomas. "James is looking for you. Are you okay?" A message from the restaurant. "Mrs. Mitchell, your husband is causing a disturbance. He's demanding information about your departure. We've told him nothing for your privacy, but wanted to alert you." I switched to airplane mode as the captain announced our imminent departure. The sensation of the massive aircraft pushing back from the gate brought an unexpected wave of emotion, part terror, part exhilaration. The safety demonstration played on my personal screen. Samantha checked my seatbelt and closed my suite door, leaving me in private cocoon. As we accelerated down the runway, I pressed my hand against the window. The wheels lifted from American soil, and I felt a physical release in my chest, as though I'd been holding my breath for years rather than minutes. Samantha returned after we reached cruising altitude. "May I prepare your bed now, Mrs. Mitchell? We have about 6 hours until Paris." "Yes, thank you." She transformed my seat into a flat bed with linens that probably had a higher thread count than anything in my home. She provided Givenchy pajamas and a toiletry kit. "Would you like dinner? Our chef has prepared lobster thermidor or beef tenderloin." "Just sleep, please." In the lavatory, I changed into the pajamas and washed my face, removing all traces of the carefully applied makeup. The woman in the mirror looked both terrified and relieved. Back in my suite, I slipped under the duvet. As the lights dimmed and the hum of the engines created a soothing white noise, I fell into the first truly peaceful sleep I'd had in months, perhaps years, somewhere over the Atlantic, between my old life and whatever waited ahead. Dawn broke as we began our descent into Charles de Gaulle Airport. I awoke to Samantha gently touching my shoulder. "Mrs. Mitchell, we're beginning our descent. Would you like coffee or breakfast before landing?" I sat up, momentarily disoriented before remembering everything. "Just coffee, please." Black. Through the window, the French countryside appeared, a patchwork of fields and villages that looked like illustrations from children's books. As we descended further, Paris emerged from morning mist, the Seine winding through centuries of history, the Eiffel Tower standing sentinel. The sight brought unexpected tears. After landing, Samantha escorted me through a private customs channel, another first-class perk that bypassed the long lines I glimpsed through doorways. My suitcase appeared almost immediately, tagged for priority handling. In the arrivals hall, drivers held signs with passengers' names. One read Mitchell, arranged by the hotel, I presumed. The driver, a middle-aged Frenchman named Philippe, took my bag. "Le Bristol, madam?" "Yes, thank you." The drive from the airport provided my first real glimpse of Paris. Morning commuters filled sidewalks, stopping at corner cafes for espresso and pastries. Historic buildings stood alongside modern structures, centuries of architecture coexisting in unlikely harmony. Philippe noticed my wide-eyed observation. "First time in Paris, madam?" "Yes." Then you must look there." He pointed to a gap between buildings where the top of the Eiffel Tower appeared briefly. And there, the golden dome of Les Invalides. And now, the Arc de Triomphe. Le Bristol, Paris occupied a limestone building on Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré, its elegant facade distinguished by green awnings and window boxes filled with red geraniums. Doormen in tailcoats rushed to open the car door. "Bienvenue à Paris, madame." The lobby gleamed with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and arrangements of fresh flowers taller than me. At reception, I provided my passport with shaking hands, suddenly aware of the magnitude of what I'd done. Mrs. Mitchell, we've been expecting you. Your suite is ready." "Thank you. And it's Ms. Wilson, actually." I used my maiden name for the first time in 5 years. The receptionist didn't miss a beat. "Of course, Ms. Wilson. Pierre will show you to your suite." The room, or rather, suite, overlooked the hotel's French garden. Afternoon sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating a sitting room larger than our first apartment. The bedroom featured a canopied king bed with linens that appeared too perfect to sleep in. The bathroom was entirely marble, with a soaking tub positioned beneath a window. Pierre demonstrated the room's features, then discreetly withdrew. Alone, I stood at the window, watching well-dressed Parisians and tourists in the garden below. The reality of my situation hit me all at once. I was in Paris, alone, having fled my marriage in the most dramatic way possible. I took the longest shower of my life, letting hot water wash away the airplane feeling and, symbolically, the remnants of the previous night. Wrapped in a hotel robe embroidered with its logo, I finally turned my phone off airplane mode. The notifications flooded in immediately. 78 missed calls, over 100 text messages, dozens of voicemails. I scrolled through them, watching James's progression from anger to confusion to panic. Early messages. What the hell is wrong with you? Answer your phone. Middle of the night. Where are you? I've called everyone we know. Morning. The credit card company just called about fraud alerts. Paris? Paris? Have you lost your mind? I called Rachel, who answered on the first ring. Oh, thank God. Are you okay? Did you really go to Paris? I'm here. At Le Bristol Hotel. Holy shit, Audrey. James has been calling nonstop. He showed up at my apartment at 3 a.m. I pretended I wasn't home. What's he saying? He's telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown. He called your parents. My stomach dropped. What? Don't worry, I called them right after and explained. Your mom said, and I quote, good for her. She did not. She absolutely did. Your dad asked if you need money. Tears welled up. Tell them I'm okay. I'll call them tomorrow. What's your plan, Audrey? I don't know yet. I booked 5 nights here. I need to think. Take your time. I'm monitoring things here. Oh, and the credit card company called him about the charges. He tried to report them as fraud, but they confirmed you're an authorized user. He's freaking out. After hanging up, I ordered room service, French onion soup, and a glass of wine, though it was barely noon. While waiting, I took my first tentative step onto the balcony. The April air carried scents of flowers and fresh bread from somewhere nearby. With food and wine providing liquid courage, I ventured out of the hotel. The concierge provided a map, circling pedestrian-friendly routes to nearby attractions. Just walking the streets of Paris proved intoxicating. The architecture, the carefully pruned trees lining boulevards, the effortlessly stylish people. I found myself at a café terrace on Place de la Madeleine ordering un café in my limited French. Watching Parisians go about their day unhurried despite the city's bustle, I smiled genuinely for the first time in what felt like years. A woman at the next table noticed my tourist map. First time in Paris, she asked in perfect English. Is it that obvious? Only because you're alone and smiling. Parisians never look that happy. She introduced herself as Catherine, an American expat who'd lived in Paris for 12 years. What brings you to Paris? She asked. Impulse, I answered truthfully. Something in my expression must have communicated more, because she nodded with understanding. The best journeys often are. I came for a weekend and never left. We chatted about her life teaching English at a university, her French husband, the challenges of integration. As we parted, she insisted I join her for dinner the following evening. I'm hosting friends at my apartment, Americans, French, a few Brits. Nothing fancy, just good food and conversation. Back at the hotel, I found myself taking a photo of the Eiffel Tower visible from my balcony. Without overthinking, I posted it to Instagram, my first social media post in months, with no caption. A digital breadcrumb announcing my whereabouts. Within minutes, my phone exploded with notifications. James's sister Emily called first. Audrey? Are you really in Paris? Yes. Are you okay? James is saying you've had some kind of breakdown. I'm perfectly fine, Emily. Your brother humiliated me on our anniversary, and I decided I deserved better. A pause. What did he do? I explained the restaurant incident. That absolute ass, she said finally. Do you need anything? Her support surprised me. I'm okay. Thank you for checking. Another unexpected message appeared from Marco the waiter. Madam, I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I wanted to ensure you're safe. Your husband was quite agitated after your departure. I replied with thanks and confirmation of my well-being. The next few days established a pattern. Mornings exploring different neighborhoods, Montmartre with its winding streets and artists, the Latin Quarter's bookshops and cafes, the Marais with its trendy boutiques. Afternoons reading in Jardin du Luxembourg or Tuileries Garden. Evenings with Catherine and her eclectic circle of friends, who accepted me without probing questions. Meanwhile, James orchestrated his own damage control campaign. He posted a public apology on Facebook, carefully worded to suggest a minor disagreement blown out of proportion by my emotional state. Friends commented with supportive messages, unaware of the full story. On my third day, I contacted an American lawyer recommended by Catherine's husband. We spoke via video call. Based on what you've described, Mrs. Mitchell, you have grounds for divorce on the basis of cruel and inhuman treatment. New York is an equitable distribution state, meaning marital assets would be divided fairly, though not necessarily equally. What should I do now, legally speaking? Document everything. Secure copies of financial records. And consider whether returning to New York soon might be advantageous for establishing residence for the proceedings. I extended my hotel stay to a full week. Paris was working its magic, each day bringing more clarity and confidence. I found myself laughing with Catherine's friends, engaging in conversations about art and politics, rediscovering parts of myself that had been silenced. On my last evening, I revisited the first cafe where I'd met Catherine. As twilight descended and the Eiffel Tower began its hourly sparkle in the distance, I raised a glass of wine in a silent toast to myself and to Paris, the city that had sheltered my rebirth. I booked my return flight on my own credit card, business class rather than first, a pragmatic compromise. The woman who flew back to New York was fundamentally different from the one who had fled a week earlier. I wore no makeup, left my hair naturally wavy, and dressed for comfort rather than approval. JFK's familiar chaos greeted me with a strange sense of homecoming. As I exited customs, I spotted Rachel waiting, holding a sign that read, "Paris Survivor." We embraced, and she whispered, "I'm so proud of you. Thank you for everything." Is he? No, she cut me off. He doesn't know you're back today. I've been monitoring his social media. He's telling everyone you had a mental health episode, and he's giving you space to heal. How considerate, I said dryly. Rachel drove me to her Upper West Side apartment, where she'd prepared her guest room. Stay as long as you need. No rush. I need to get some things from the house. We'll go tomorrow, during his regular Tuesday lunch meeting. I checked his calendar. You're scary good at this. I've been planning your escape for years, she admitted. Just waiting for you to be ready. The confrontation with James came sooner than expected. As Rachel and I approached my brownstone the next day, his Porsche sat in the driveway. We can come back later, Rachel offered. No, I need to do this. My key still worked. The house smelled the same, James's expensive cologne, and the lilies he insisted on having delivered weekly. We found him in his home office, phone pressed to his ear. He froze mid-sentence when he saw me. I'll call you back, he said to whoever was on the line. Audrey, you're back. Just for some things. He approached as if to embrace me. I stepped back. Audrey, we need to talk about what happened. Your behavior was... My behavior? The words shot out sharper than I intended. You left me waiting for 3 hours on our anniversary, then humiliated me in front of your friends and the entire restaurant. I apologized for that. Things got out of hand with the guys. But flying to Paris? Charging thousands to our card? That's not rational behavior. Actually, it's the most rational decision I've made in years. His expression shifted to the wounded look he'd perfected for client negotiations. I know I made a mistake. But we can work through this. Everyone has rough patches. Rachel, silent until now, snorted. James shot her a glare. This is between my wife and me. Ex-wife, I corrected. I've spoken with a lawyer. The wounded look vanished, replaced by cold calculation. You're not thinking clearly. You've been influenced by people who don't understand our relationship. He glanced pointedly at Rachel. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years. I'm staying at Rachel's while we sort out the legal details. If you walk out that door, don't expect to come back to anything. I built this life. We built it together. And I'd rather have nothing than spend another day being diminished by you. I packed methodically clothes, personal mementos, professional files. James alternated between pleading and threatening, a masterclass in manipulation that might have worked weeks earlier. Now, I recognized each tactic with startling clarity. Within days, I'd moved into a small but sunny one-bedroom apartment in Chelsea, not far from where I'd lived before meeting James. Rachel helped me furnish it with essentials from IKEA, a far cry from the designer pieces in the brownstone, but wholly mine. I contacted my former boss at Thompson & Bright, who invited me to lunch. Audrey, I've missed your eye for strategy. The Westfield account hasn't been the same without you. I'm not looking to return to the firm, Diana. I'm starting my own consultancy. Even better. We'd be your first client. Mitchell Marketing Consultancy opened with one employee, me, and one client. I worked from my apartment, converting the dining area into an office. The freedom of making decisions without justification or approval felt both terrifying and intoxicating. 2 weeks after my return, I received a surprising email from Maxwell Harding's wife, Charlotte. I heard what happened. The same thing occurred at my anniversary dinner 3 years ago. If you need someone who understands, I'm here. We met for coffee, which turned into weekly lunches with a growing group of wives and girlfriends of James's business circle. Each had similar stories of humiliation, gaslighting, and isolation. Charlotte called us the Afterthought Club. Through these connections, I discovered James had been misrepresenting the company's finances to investors. My marketing materials had unknowingly contained inflated figures. I provided this information to my lawyer, who advised me to also contact the SEC. This strengthens your position in the divorce, Ms. Wilson, but also protects you from potential liability. 6 months after Paris, I sat in a conference room across from James and his attorney. My lawyer, Diane Levine, a formidable woman in her 50s, laid out our terms. My client is entitled to half of all marital assets, including the value of Thompson Properties, which she helped build through her uncompensated marketing work. James scoffed. She was compensated. She lived in luxury. Mr. Mitchell, Diane continued calmly, given the information my client has provided to the SEC regarding financial discrepancies, I suggest you consider our fair proposal rather than pursuing a public trial. His face whitened. The settlement we reached provided me with financial security without destroying him, not because he deserved mercy, but because I refused to be consumed by bitterness. My business grew steadily. By the 8-month mark, I had hired 2 junior consultants and moved into a small office space in the Flatiron district. My first major independent campaign won an industry award, my name alone on the plaque. Rachel remained my rock throughout, hosting movie nights when legal documents overwhelmed me, celebrating each victory, no matter how small, reminding me of how far I'd come when doubt crept in. The divorce became final 1 year after that disastrous anniversary dinner. To mark the occasion, I booked a return trip to Paris, business class on my own credit card, staying at a charming boutique hotel in the Marais rather than Le Bristol. Catherine met me at the same cafe where we'd first connected. You look different, she observed. Lighter. I feel lighter. Free. We spent the week revisiting my favorite spots and discovering new ones. On my last evening, we dined at a small restaurant near Place de Vosges, joined by several of the friends I'd made during my first visit. Over dessert, Catherine raised her glass. To Audrey, who came to Paris as a refugee and returns as a conqueror. Back in New York, I received an unexpected package, a handwritten letter from Marco, the waiter from Bordeaux, who had tracked me down through the restaurant grapevine. Madam Wilson, I thought you might like to know that your former husband returned to Bordeaux last month with a new companion. When he attempted to belittle her as he did you, our staff accidentally spilled an entire tray of drinks on his lap. Some lessons must be taught directly. Chef Pascal sends his regards and hopes you will visit us again someday, as our honored guest, of course. 1 year and 1 month after Paris, I stood in my office overlooking Madison Avenue, watching New Yorkers hurry through their day. My company now employed 6 people, with clients across 3 states. My apartment felt like home, decorated with treasures from weekend antiquing trips and photos of new memories with true friends. That evening, addressing a women's business association, I shared my story publicly for the first time. The most expensive flight of my life was worth every penny, I concluded. Because it wasn't just a journey to Paris, it was a journey back to myself. In the audience, Rachel wiped away tears, then gave a standing ovation that others quickly joined. Later, as we shared a celebratory dinner, Rachel asked, "Any regrets?" I considered the question seriously. Only that I waited so long to leave. But without that specific moment of clarity, that perfect humiliation, I might still be waiting at that table, making excuses for his behavior and blaming myself. To rock bottoms that become launching pads, Rachel toasted. And to Paris, I added, the city of light at the end of the tunnel. If you've stayed with me through this entire story, I'd love to know. Have you ever had a moment of absolute clarity that changed your life's direction? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more about my journey and other stories of transformation. Remember, sometimes the most expensive decision is staying where you're undervalued. Thank you for listening, and may you always find the courage to choose yourself when it matters most.